Hello, hope all is well. So you might have seen my last video on the Nano Cortex being sort of like an ultimate backup solution. Not quite for my FM3. One of the questions was, how did I actually go ahead and profile my or capture my FM3? So I thought I'd do a quick video on that. You can also use this, of course, to capture any other modeler that you might be using. So here are a few, well, tricks or tips, or just a walkthrough of how I do it on the FM3, and then you can definitely apply this to, say, another modeler. So we're going to start within the FM3 and the preset that I want to capture. And I guess the three rules of capturing a digital modeler are: turn off any gates, turn off the noise gate, turn off any gates. It's relatively simple, but sometimes you can forget these sort of things and you won't actually notice it before you actually make the capture, because when you're playing, the signal goes through and you won't hear the noise gate being activated. But in essence, having a noise gate active will really mess up any kind of capture that you're trying to do, be it with the Nano Cortex, be it with Tonex or something else, simply because for the capture, the noise gate is going to cut off any sort of sense of dynamics, if that makes sense. So if the capture process has a very low volume at some point, instead of getting signal and some kind of information back from the source, or in this case the FM3 for me, it's just going to simply get silence. So when you get the capture afterwards, it'll be either very undergained or very weird sounding with no gain at all. So typically in modelers, quad cortex or the fractal in my case, there is an input gate, which is sometimes not as visible as one that we might put in the preset like I have here. And that's something that you definitely want to turn off. In the fractal, it's really easy. You know, if it's on and you have a threshold that's active, if you pull down the threshold all the way to the left, it will then switch to off. I will note you'll also save some CPU in the process, so that's quite a cool kind of benefit to it. And then if you have a gate within the preset itself, you should deactivate that. On the fractal, it's really easy. I can just either right click and then do bypass engage or hit spacebar. And another important thing to check is basically stereo to mono. Because you're capturing a mono signal, like a mono amp or something like that, you should make sure that your preset, or the thing that you're capturing, is also properly outputting in mono. And I'll give an example here with my FM3 preset. So here I have two cabs that are hard panned left and right. That's super easy. I just pan them both to center, and then they're both sending, both outputs are sending the same signal. Now, depending on what device you use, you might have something similar set up. But in essence, it's basically just double checking that the output that you're getting out of one of the outputs is the one that you want to capture, and not some kind of maybe slightly out of phase mess, or maybe just one side that maybe you're not so interested in. So this is definitely something that you should look into before making the capture. And then one last thing, I'll go into setup and I'll show my audio output settings. So we're still in stereo mode, plus 4 dB output level, normal phase, and this is to the XLR outputs, which is what we're going to be using to go into the Nano Cortex. Now the thing with levels is that on the Nano Cortex you can change the input level to suit. There's also a boost function as well. I would suggest giving a very healthy amount of signal from the source that you're trying to capture, so there's no real compensation or extra gain that needs to be added on the Nano Cortex itself. At least that's how I've been doing it. I've been getting really good results out of the unit doing it like this. So this is my small Nano Cortex board. I'll link to the video that I'd made previously if you want to have a look at that in more detail. But in essence, you know, it's the Nano Cortex powered by USB on a pedal train nano board. I disconnected the MIDI controllers. I'm not going to be using it here. But in essence, what we're looking at doing now is basically doing the connections to the Nano Cortex from the FM3 to do the capture. So here we are with the FM3. I've got my Nano Cortex small board over here. First thing we'll do is actually hook the output of the Nano Cortex to my DAW so we can hear what's going on. And we'll hook this to output 1L. While we're here, we'll also connect the cable for our guitar into the input jack. And then on this output, so output 2R, or capture output as it's clearly labeled, we'll hook in a cable that's going over here, that's going to the input of the FM3. And now all that remains after that is to hook the output of the FM3 to the capture input of the Nano Cortex. I said we'll be doing this with an XLR. So we've hooked an XLR to one of the FM3 outputs, and then we'll connect the output of the FM3 to the capture input of the Nano Cortex. And I've just disabled the boost because I think there's probably more than enough output from the FM3, but we'll check that now. Now with everything hooked up, we can then go to our Cortex Cloud app and then do create new neural capture. And then it will basically tell us to do all the things that we just did, i.e. plug a guitar into the instrument jack, have monitor out or headphones out in use so that we can hear what's coming out of the Nano Cortex. We've done that. And then connect our capture out to the input of the target device, in this case our FM3. And then capture input is the output of our target device, in this case the FM3, that's going back into the Nano Cortex. We hit next, and then we get to this screen where we have the values that we have to set for the capture in gain and then the output level of the actual capture itself. So at this point I've plugged in my guitar, and now we're just going to do the levels check so that we're hitting the Nano Cortex with sufficient level but not overloading it. So I've got too much input or output from the FM3 going into the Nano Cortex. I would suggest just reducing the input gain on the actual Nano Cortex itself. It's really easy to do. We either just put down this level here, and you can also do it within the app. So in this case, I've actually zeroed out the input gain of the Nano Cortex, and I've left my FM3 output on max, as that's what I usually use from the XLR outputs going to, say, front of house or something like that. And we'll use that now to do the actual capture, or the neural capture, that will now be on the Nano Cortex. So this takes about 3.5 minutes, maybe a bit more. So we'll let that do its thing, and then we'll check in to see the results. So the capture's done, we just have to name it. I'll do this real quick. I'll just name this FM3 test. I'll note this won't be uploaded to the cloud or anywhere, it's just for the video. We'll leave this blank, and then we'll go to next. And then now we can basically compare between the neural capture and then the source and see how each one sounds. So there we go. I find it's really straightforward. Out of all the kind of like profiling modeling units that I've tried so far, neural stuff has definitely been the easiest by far, especially the Nano Cortex. And compared to something like, say, Tonex, where, well, you need like a reamping tool and things like that. And it's definitely easy once you get to grips with it. It's not as easy as having a standalone hardware device where you just plug in a few cables, get the levels right, and you can do a quick capture that's done in like 3 to 4 minutes. And then you get pretty good results, I think. For me, I think maybe the Nano Cortex or the capture that was made had maybe a bit more bass and maybe the level was slightly different. But the core tone in this case, it's a very high gain tone, was pretty damn close to the original, and it's certainly more than usable instead of, say, my FM3 rig, should anything happen. There are some caveats to that, but if you want to know more about that, I'd suggest checking out the previous video I did. In any case, hope this was useful. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next video. Take care.